Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about 7 things that stop your language learning progress. Things that make you feel like you're stuck, like you're not improving at all, that might cause your intermediate plateau, for example. So the first thing I would like to begin with is the lack of consistency. We all want to become fluent, we all want to improve our language skills. However, a lot of us are just not consistent. The truth is, if you don't practice your languages often enough, you're not going to improve. And here I also want to highlight constantly chasing this magic method instead of actually practicing the language. Watching a lot of videos on YouTube, on TikTok, and Instagram about how to learn the language, learning a lot of different approaches and methods, and actually applying them when it comes to your language learning journey. Don't get me wrong, educating yourself is amazing. That's why I have this YouTube channel, because here I'm teaching you a lot of different methods, scientific approaches to language learning, and you have to try those methods and see which ones work for you. Because just understanding them in theory and then theorizing about them and thinking that, okay, this method sounds good, this method sounds better, let me try this one, but then never actually trying it is exactly something that is stopping your language learning progress. Guys, the reality is that there is no one magic method. You have to try a bunch of different approaches and then see which one works for you. And if you want to call it a magic method, the one that is going to be working great for you, then okay, let's call it this one magic approach to language learning, as long as it helps you stay consistent. Okay, the second thing that is stopping your language learning progress is unrealistic output. You don't use the language you're learning in real life situations. You don't speak about your everyday experiences and you don't journal about them. And obviously this everyday natural fluency happens when you use a language in the situations that are the most normal to you, the most natural to you. When you talk about your job, yourself, what you did on the weekend, and then obviously depending on your level, you can use advanced phrases or phrasal verbs or idioms while talking about something as basic as your workout routine. Honestly, this is something that I experienced firsthand when I was learning Chinese in college, because in college, my Chinese experience was all about translating very complicated texts about politics, about economics, because I wanted to become a Chinese interpreter or translator. And so what I experienced was that I could talk about complicated business, import, export texts, but I couldn't really talk about my everyday routines. Like, I brush my teeth, I have breakfast, and then I go to the gym. That was freaking impossible for me. And also that was very scary because I never practiced it, and so I literally had zero experience talking about my actual life in Chinese. And maybe some of you are going to think that, Veronika, you were learning Chinese to work in Chinese, so why are you complaining that you couldn't talk about your everyday situations, that your output was not really realistic? The problem is, to be able to enjoy your work, you really need to like every aspect of it, or at least most aspects about your job, right? And obviously communicating with people, yes, I would be communicating about all of those business related topics, but I would also be talking about myself, where I was from, what I liked. Because I didn't get all this practice, I felt so shy even working in Chinese, because I knew that the moment we started talking about myself, my Chinese would just crumble, disappear. I would not know what to say. What I highly recommend here is journaling in your foreign language. I know it's time consuming, but you can do it on your phone, on your computer. You don't necessarily have to use a pen and paper if you prefer this traditional approach, as do I. But the reason why I like journaling so much is because it really helps you reflect on what you did today. You're going to write everything on paper, on your computer, and you're going to think how to phrase those sentences in a better way. You have time to look up some of the words in the dictionary. It's not like actually speaking to a real person, and you can really explore all of the different phrases and idioms in better, more advanced ways in which you can create a specific sentence. The next thing that stops your language learning progress is trying to be perfect. Comparing yourself to this perfect version of yourself speaking English, Chinese, Spanish, or also comparing yourself to native speakers. And yes, I speak from my personal experience here because I used to be overly focused on getting everything right. When I spoke English, when I spoke Spanish, Chinese, doesn't really matter. All I was focusing on, instead of enjoying the time, when I was speaking English, was making sure that my pronunciation was perfect, my grammar was perfect, all of the words I was using were perfect. And the thing is, it can really paralyze our progress. Instead of wanting to speak, wanting to put yourself in those situations where you're going to be speaking the language, you freeze because you understand that the moment you make a mistake, you start criticizing yourself because you want to be perfect. And so it's just this vicious circle of wanting to be perfect, and then you make a mistake, and then you beat yourself up for it, and then you want to be perfect again. And it's a very stressful situation. I'm not going to say that I stopped being a perfectionist over time. I think for most people, it's just not realistic. What I did though is slowly but surely, I started becoming more of an observer. I would speak English or Spanish, and then I would make a mistake, and then I would be like, interesting, I made a mistake. Let me analyze it. Instead of immediately criticizing myself, instead of feeling shy, instead of shutting down, I continued talking to people. I continued putting myself in those situations where I would speak to people, where I would write in foreign languages, and then I would see what happened without any criticism, just observation. Now, if you guys actually want to make progress in your language learning, one of the best ways to do so is through connecting people who actually speak this language. That's where today's sponsor, italki, makes a huge difference. You guys know that I only recommend products and services that I personally find really useful. Over the years of learning a lot of different languages, I've tried a lot of different methods, but honestly, nothing beats speaking with a native speaker. Whether you're learning English, Spanish, or any other language, you can have personalized one-on-one lessons with a native speaking teacher on italki. What makes this platform so unique is its flexibility. italki has over 30,000 teachers worldwide, so you can find someone who matches your style. Whether you prefer formal lessons, casual conversation practice, or even learning through fun activities like cooking classes in your foreign language. And here is a quick peek at one of my recent Spanish lessons with Lorena from Mexico. She's amazing at breaking down tiny grammar points while keeping things fun and easy to understand. I'm still taking Spanish lessons with her every single week because they help me improve my Spanish, speak more confidently, and don't have this fear when I actually communicate with native speakers. And the best part is that italki is pay per lesson. There are no subscriptions or commitments. You learn at your own pace with your own schedule. Whether you want a single lesson this week or regular classes every single month, it's completely up to you. You create your own schedule. So if you're ready to make progress in your language learning, please use my link in the description and check out italki. Only for you guys, I have a special bonus. When you buy $10 of lesson credit, you will get $5 completely for free. This offer is only limited to the first 50 users, so please don't wait. You can use my promo code Veronika 2025 to claim your discount. All the information is going to be saved in the description. Okay, let's move on to reason number 4, why you might be feeling like you're not making any progress in your language learning, and that is relying on passive learning. So what is passive learning? It's basically when you are listening to something or watching a show in your foreign language and you're not actually actively engaged. Maybe you're commuting to work or from work, or maybe you're cooking something, so you're not really paying a lot of attention to the show, because you can be watching a show in an active way, pausing if there are any words you don't know, saving them to Anki, like really actively engaging with the material, with the show. Or you can be watching a show in a passive way where you actually don't really remember much of what happened. Like you just watched the first episode, and if somebody were to ask you what happened in the first episode of the show, you would be like, I think this is what happened. I'm not sure, because I was also on TikTok responding to my mom's messages, cooking, doing something else. I was not actually actively watching the show. And here I'm not saying that you should never ever use passive learning. Sometimes when you're tired and all you want to do is just spend time on your couch, be on TikTok, watch a show, it's totally fine. But please don't rely on this type of learning to actually improve your language skills and become become more and more advanced. Because if you're not paying attention, you're probably not learning. And yes, I know that active learning is a lot more difficult. You actually have to sit down, be present, be actively engaged, understand what you're doing, and not be just like, oh, it's okay, it will happen naturally. Unfortunately, if you're not paying attention, it won't happen naturally. I've noticed that usually people rely on passive learning a lot when they don't have a lot of free time. And so if you are one of those people, if you work a lot, if you have kids, family responsibilities, and you realize that you just don't have a lot of free time to dedicate to language learning, and you tend to gravitate towards passive learning, maybe the first thing to do for you would be to actually sit down and look at your schedule and be very honest with yourself and realize that passive learning can only take you so far. Okay, the next reason that is stopping your language progress is not understanding how language transfer works and not even knowing about it, that this thing, a language transfer, exists and that is happening to you right now. When you're learning a new language, your native language or all the other languages that you can already speak really well will influence the new language you're learning. And the thing that happens to most students is we really get demotivated and sad when this happens. But it's inevitable, guys. Just accept it, observe it, accept it, understand that it happens to every single one of us. The languages you can already speak will always influence your new language. All you have to do is recognize it. Maybe spend a few more hours learning specific words that are very similar to your native language but have a completely different meaning in the foreign language you're learning. For example, in English, there's this word library. And in Spanish, a lot of people think that this word is translated to librería, which is understandable because if your native language is Spanish, librería, a library, these words just sound very similar. Obviously, it's a mistake, but I understand why I'm making this mistake. So I'm not gonna beat myself up for it. I'm not gonna feel bad. I'm just gonna spend a few more hours understanding the difference and really memorizing that librería is not library, it's a bookstore. Reason number 6 why your language skills are not improving is because you're relying too heavily on translation. That is something that I see a lot of language learners do. Every single time one of you guys are learning a new word, immediately what you have to do is look up the translation, memorize the translation, translate every single sentence, every single word, because without translation, you can't memorize anything. And yes, maybe in certain situations, it's totally okay to translate a word or two, but when you're trying to memorize a word, what you're doing is you're trying to internalize a new language. And the process of internalizing a new language is not about translating everything. You're not Google Translate. You're not walking around and be like, apple, manzana, apple, яблоко. That's not what you're doing. The process of internalizing a language is when you see the object that looks like an apple, and depending on what language you're speaking, you can immediately communicate it to the other person that, look, this is a яблоко or manzana. You don't need to translate constantly in your head. What happens when you're constantly translating back and forth between your native language and your target language is that the cognitive processing becomes very slow. Even though you might think that it's easier for you, in reality, it becomes way harder for you to remember certain words. It prevents you from internalizing the syntax, the vocabulary, the grammar, everything. It makes your progress super slow. And the goal when you're trying to memorize new words is always to make them your second nature. Like it's your second nature to use these words. And so what is going to help you here is not translating, but actually using images or maybe creating example sentences that are connected to real life. And obviously seeing this word more and more often. And how are you going to see this word more and more often? If you actually practice the language often enough. But if you are a little bit like me, and sometimes I don't practice the language every single day, for example, right now with Spanish, I'm a bit busy with work or with doing something else, so I don't really practice Spanish every single day. So what I do instead is I use Anki or the spaced repetition technology method to help me review all of the words that I have recently learned. If you like this approach, use it. If you don't like this approach, don't use it. Just make sure that you acquire the language naturally through your everyday practice. So guys, I think it's going to be it for this video. If you liked it, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to improve your language skills with native speakers, I highly recommend italki. With my discount code Veronika 2025, you can get $5 off. A lot of you guys might be thinking that language learning is extremely hard. If you want to see all of the arguments why it is actually easy for some people and all of the polyglot secrets that a lot of people don't tell you about, make sure to click right here and watch this video.